The first speaker of the day will be Dr. Ravindra Utgikar. He is the Vice President of Praj Industries. Sir, you're most welcome. He's the Vice President of Corporate Strategy and Marketing at Praj Industries. He has more than 30 years of Indian and international experience as product and in product and project business. So his areas of interest are sales, marketing, business development, and strategy domain, working for various leading MNCs and now with Praj. So basically an electronics and telecommunication engineer. It's rarity to find an electronics and telecommunication engineer getting into the bioenergy space. And incidentally, I'm an electronics engineer myself, sir. So we share something. Dr. Ravindra is also a doctorate in management from Pune University. So his research was on in the renewable energy area, looking at strategies for entry and growth in international market. I'm pretty sure that all your experience will help grow the business in India too. So over to you, Dr. Ravindra Utgikar.
So it's a nice feeling to be in this August company. I'm my sincere compliments to SOChain for organizing this webinar. Very timely one. No better person than YBR to address and set context. Who has seen it all, been there, done that. Zeus has also joined, which is also fantastic news. And I'm sure deliberations today will go a long way in accelerating the growth of ethanol blending in India. With your permission, sir, can I share my screen?
Please go ahead.
Okay, can you see my screen well?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Like I said, the timing couldn't have been any better. We are at the cusp of industry taking off, and I think all the endeavors like this go a long way in expanding the circle of influence, debusting the myths, giving people the right information, what the past has been, how the future is evolving. And I think Dr. Ramakrishnaji sir's address was very, very insightful in walking us through. My presentation I have structured in 4 modules. I will little bit talk about my company that I represent and what we do, how we do. Then we will see how ethanol blending is a game changer and growth enabler, whether it is social, environmental, economical, or energy aspects. We are going to talk about biomobility as the new age mobility, and we will look at some of the technology and policy perspectives. I think Ramakrishnan sir had already explained some of that. We'll have to quickly revisit. Then we'll also look at what lies ahead, what's in offing. So I think that's how I have structured my presentation. So the company I represent, Praj Industries, is been a pioneer in the field of industrial biotechnology. Almost 4 decades of presence in India, listed on stock exchanges. Clearly, in engineering, procurement, construction solutions on the back of the innovative technology that we develop at our Praj Matrix R&D Center, which is known for over 300 patents. Started with sugary feedstock, eventually have added number of other capabilities to process number of other feedstocks. So I think that's what we say. The picture at the left hand side is a George Washington Carver Award, which is considered as the topmost honor in industrial biotechnology. This was bestowed to our founder chairman, Dr. Pramod Chaudhary, who incidentally became the first Indian ever to receive this award, which is a great recognition of not just what Praj has been doing, but also a rich tribute to the prowess of India and India's growing technology advancements, and also the strides that India has been taking in the industrial biotechnology. Our company has been ranked as the best place to work in advanced bioeconomy, which considers few other elements in the bio sector as well, and considered as number 2 and number 3 hottest company in the advanced bioeconomy when it comes to renewable fuels, chemicals, biodesign, bioengineering. That's a little bit of an overview about our company. The company operates on the philosophy of R&D to D&D, which is research and development to design and deployment. So we have end-to-end capabilities from conceiving an idea, developing from a paper to a flask to a bench to a pilot to a commercial scale. We have been doing that repeatedly on numerous feedstocks, and we have all it takes to run through the each end of the value chain, and we are even develop capabilities for the life cycle management. So that has been the philosophy of company operating in this space. Our global presence would mean that we have over 750 references across all 5 continents in over 75 countries. The murky list of clients operating in this space speak for themselves, and this list is only growing, the count is only growing. And this gives us great leverage because the best practices observed in other part of the world, the different feedstock that we come across in other part of the world, we bring back, we try to plow those grassroots learnings into the Indian scenario. So we are able to work on continuously improving the technical feasibility, commercial feasibility, capacity enhancements, sweating assets more, energy efficiency, conserving the water or utility footprint as a whole. So this global experience is not just to showcase that we are operating globally, but we are also bringing back all the knowledge, expertise that we work with global clients and keep improving our processes, systems, and technologies. The next slide talks about our core, which is about our partnerships. We believe that this is an era of collaboration and partnerships, and irrespective of which area, whether it is academics, market side, customer side, technology side, or working with different policymakers or different associations, Praj has been shoulder to shoulder with them to develop a sustainable ecosystem for the industry. So we are very proud of the partnership that we are able to have with various stakeholders across the value chain, and we believe that together we are here to make a difference and create a value for our customers and eventually make our country proud and self-sustainable on the energy domain. I mentioned about Praj Matrix, the R&D center, which is a backbone for Praj's growth for over 4 decades. It has 2-pronged strategy. One is to support existing business on continuously improving the throughput, efficiency, minimizing the energy footprint, water footprint, and giving customers value for their money. And on the other stream, continuously developing products ahead of the curve based on the stated market needs or unstated market needs, based on the various technologies, trends that are evolving, collaborating with various organizations around the world. And it's a home to over 90 scientists and doctorate technicians who are working overtime with over 300 plus patents in a cross-functional research domain. I think that's very important because the era belongs to a cross-functional research. And Ramakrishna sir already mentioned about me being electronics engineer, so we have to bring in the automation, digital technology to keep our industry also ahead of the curve. That is something which also we continuously work on. So I think the R&D is the right place for us to test our ideas, to develop them on a pilot scale, experiment them, continuously improving the quality, and also exploring various feedstocks. That's a little bit about our R&D center. Moving on, this is where we hit ethanol blending as a solution to numerous problems our country is facing or the challenges our country is facing for growth. And these are stated, some of them are stated here, be it energy security, be it climate change issues, be it employment generation issues, be it outgo of foreign exchange, be it air pollution and related health hazards that we are talking. Recently released report by Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, IPCC, in their 6th edition said that we are doing very little as various nations to achieve the target of keeping global warming under control or climate change under control. And they are urging that we need to take aggressive steps, investments, technologies in the clean tech space, in the green energy space, to be able to get anywhere close to actually combating or fighting the climate change. And that's where biofuels have a big role to play. So we are seeing ethanol blending as a game changer or enabler to actually reach out to various issues that we are facing, whether it is decarbonization, whether it is combating the climate change aspects, whether it is energy self-sufficiency, thereby reducing the foreign exchange outgo of our nation, whether it is, there's a big talk about energy security. We are now reading in newspapers today that the electricity crisis is hitting China like anything. And then they are forced to shut their factories and their totally disruptions in supply, which is eventually threatening to affect the whole global supply chain. And I think this is where the important aspect about sustainable energy solutions, the energy solutions that are in sync with environment come in, and that's where Praj is able to make a big difference. Our respected Honorable Prime Minister always speaks about the Antyodaya, or the bottom of the pyramid, which is ensuring that the last section, which is will get benefit of our development. And that is where we see the employment generation in the rural parts of the India. It's something which also ethanol blending can help achieve. So there are numerous socio-economical, environment and energy facets to ethanol blending. And we will see them eventually in the presentation and even in today's panel discussion. So if we quickly look back on the energy side, the graph shows our imports on oil and imports on gas and also the consumption patterns. And clearly these are past trends. And we are already seeing the V-shaped recovery post pandemic, and which only means that our GDP is rising, and to fuel the GDP growth, we need to have more and more energy requirement. And on one hand, we have more energy requirement to meet our growth ambitions. On the other hand, we have more reliance on imported sources of fossil fuels. And we have to therefore work extra hard to make sure that we have our captive resources leveraged. And clearly, after the industry, automobile sector is seen as the second largest consumer of energy. And catching this automobile sector pulse, we also see that it is also on the growth path, often considered as a barometer for the economy, because transportation is a great thing. It actually connects the generation and consumption ends, and the role of automobile sector in the growth of any nation can't be undermined. Be it road transport, be it marine transport, be it aviation transport, India is poised to leapfrog and actually become the fourth largest automobile industry in the world. And Ramakrishna sir already mentioned about sustainable aviation fuel, which is the aviation sector. And we are also seeing ahead of the curve, the opportunities opening us for biomarine fuels. So there is a lot of opportunity for the biofuels to play a role in not only road transport, aviation sector, but also on the marine or sea transport. So this just spells that we need to step up our activities, because as just spoken a while back, automobile industry is second largest consumer of energy and also second largest emitter of greenhouse gases or carbon footprint. So if we were to curb carbon footprints, it is imperative that we need to harness biofuels. Carbon emissions is because basically all the crude oil is beneath the earth's surface. So we are actually extracting the fossil fuels, consuming them, and actually that results in increased carbon footprint or emissions or greenhouse gas emission. So on the contrary, biofuels, which is actually a source from carbohydrates, which plants absorb carbon dioxide for photosynthesis, and plants goods, services, fuels made from bio resources when consumed emit carbon dioxide. So on one hand, plants absorb carbon dioxide. On the other hand, goods, products made from plants when consumed emit carbon dioxide. So we are in a way creating a carbon neutral cycle, which is little bit known as a circular bioeconomy. So if we harness more and more of biofuels, what we will do is we will take away to that extent the additional usage of fossil fuels and additional corresponding carbon emissions of fossil fuel. So biofuels will actually help keeping the carbon levels below the requirement. And now we are all watching and listening on the television media and also reading in the news media that there is a big race to zero campaign that is drumming up ahead of the COP26 climate change summit in Glasgow later this year in a month's time or so. So all nations are required to declare the carbon neutrality targets. Even China has said that they would like to become carbon neutral by 2060. And India is yet to announce the target. So if we were to achieve carbon neutrality, biofuels have an unprecedented role to play. That's the point I wanted to emphasize. So what we are saying is we are looking at an era of having a low carbon emission fuel that will drive the mobility solutions in times to come. And that's where the biomobility comes into the play. Now, biomobility is actually denotes the biofuel production technologies for making low carbon renewable transportation fuel made from biological resources. And you can see the green band is comprising of the advanced biofuels on the top. At the same time, the yellow band, which is actually the established biofuels that we have. So the more and more usage of biofuels will actually take us on a path of energy self-reliance, will also take on a path of carbon neutrality, will also take us on a path of creating employment in the rural areas, which is also need of the hour, and which obviously helps us mitigate and combat the evils of climate change. Clearly, biofuels or biomobility is the way to move forward. And then, biomobility can be achieved through the expertise in processing number of feedstocks, be it sugary feedstocks, be it starchy feedstock, lignocellulosic feedstock, or even the other type of waste. We call it waste to wealth. And there are numerous technologies that Praj has developed, and actually the world-class R&D center that we have, and they give us to the product that we devise from processing those feedstocks. So it's a feedstock technology and product expertise that Praj has developed that is going to drive the biofuels, which will drive what we call as a bioeconomy, which is going to be the increasing part in the mainstreaming of economy. Although the audience is very elite, some of the new participants in the whole sector may not be familiar with all the feedstocks, and that's why there is a pictorial representation on the right side. This is how the feedstocks are, and when they undergo the fermentation, distillation, dehydration, processing, we get fantastic biofuels which actually help solve numerous issues. Ramakrishna sir already mentioned the policy evolution starting with Ram Naik ji era, the beginning of this millennium, and this is how the whole industry has progressed. Fantastic interventions, strategic interventions based on the stated needs, unstated needs, global trends, cherry picking the best that is possible for Indian industry, and which has been a great growth driver for ethanol blending program. And there are numerous flagship programs announced by the government, and this ethanol blending program complements all of those. And we are also seeing, because of that, the role of farmer is moving, transitioning from Annadata to Urja Data, a famous slogan MOPNG has come out with. So I think what we are seeing is Atmanirbharta, doubling farmers' income, aligned with the United Nations stated goals for sustainability. Clearly, Make in India gets benefited because we want to achieve the energy self-reliance, so our local manufacturing will get boost. Swachh Bharat Abhiyan also comes into the play. So there are a number of elements that are brought together by very, very progressive and very, very advanced, forward-looking strategic policy interventions by the government of India. And this is the roadmap that talks about it. And then what the next slide tells is a slide which is very interesting technology perspective. All of us are familiar with the classical crude oil refinery, where you extract the crude oil, do a distillation, fractionation, and then you get a number of products that are we all are consuming. Now we are transitioning to era from carbohydrates to hydrocarbons. Like I said, from energy that is fossil fuel driven to energy that is renewable driven, and that benefits in all aspects. So what we call as a biocrude, which comes in various forms, as can be seen here, and again undergoes chemical and thermochemical and biological processing. And then what we have is a classical integrated biorefinery, where we have a number of products that are coming out, which are in the form of fuels, chemicals, which have potential to substitute, if not replace, but actually they definitely can complement today's materials, today's fuels. So I think we are going to see going forward a transition of energy from hydrocarbons to carbohydrates, which is also symbolizes the mainstreaming of bioeconomy and the big role that biofuels have to play in it. So we are clearly seeing economical, societal, and ecological progress by such transition. Next slide actually quickly talks about the mobility, how it's going to progress. If we map the 4 parameters, environment, economy, employment, and empowerment, on each of the mobility sources, which is a conventional mobility based on the fossil fuels on the left hand side, and to the extreme right hand side we have electric mobility, which is also being big talked about. There is a great push to electric mobility, and what we are seeing here is a biomobility in the middle. So if you compare on all 4 parameters, biomobility ticks all the boxes. It is environment friendly. Of course, e-mobility is environment friendly as long as the electricity on which the charging happens is renewable. Given India's today's energy canvas or energy portfolio, we are heavily dependent on fossil fuels. About 70 to 80% we are dependent on coal and oil and fossil resources for electricity generation. When the renewable energy actually takes over in a big way, then even e-mobility will tick that box. So e-mobility is environment friendly as long as the electricity is derived from renewable sources. It certainly benefits economy because we are leveraging our captive resources, creating captive jobs, conserving foreign exchange, helping reduce the current account deficit, helping strengthen the Indian rupee to a dollar. That is not possible with conventional mobility because we are dependent on imported resources. On the electric mobility, even today, many of the technologies, many of the batteries and many of the things are still imported, although scenario is fast changing. So we'll see going forward e-mobility becoming more economically feasible for our nation. Clearly, employment is a big issue for India because we have a huge demographic dividend, and that can turn into our strategic advantage or nightmare depending on how we are able to harness it. And for that employment generation, today we have millions of people working on the conventional mobility side in terms of existing internal combustion engines, automobile industry, auto component industry, existing fuel dispensing infrastructure, and so on. And which actually biofuels complement because they work in tandem with conventional mobility. The minute we move to e-mobility, the number of parts go down, dispensing infrastructure will change. So all that would have a radical impact on the existing supply chains of the automobile industry.
Dr. Ravindra, can you conclude in about a minute's time?
Automobile industry, auto component industry. So we have some concerns over the employment generation. And clearly empowerment is one thing where, like I said, creating the employment and source of revenue at the bottom of the pyramid, Antyodaya, as our Prime Minister calls it. If our farmers or rural youth get empowered, find the source of sustainable livelihood, probably the consumption cycle will kick in and it will be a more sustainable way. The point I want to make here is biofuels, ethanol works perfectly well with conventional mobility by way of blending, and it also works perfectly well with the e-mobility by way of hybrid vehicles. And even going forward, there are flex fuel engines where actually it's poised to make a frog leap and pole vault in consumption. And then clearly, we are seeing that since the interventions, strategic interventions by this government, the graph for ethanol blending is on the rise. And last year we are hitting around 8%, which is a great news. And clearly the wheel shown here shows multiple facets of how progress has been achieved socially, economically, environmentally. So I think the ethanol blending program as of now is going steady, and going to only get accelerated by way of the focus that it is getting, which is a great news for the nation. And sorry,
Dr. Ravindra, you need to conclude. You need to conclude.
Just the last two slides. So I just put in a scenario here that on one column you have various feedstocks and their availability, and then if those all feedstocks and their availability is harnessed, then we have a great opportunity to produce ethanol, and that would mean that we will have a big impact in greenhouse gas reductions, employment, farmers, and also cumulated forex saving. And all this means that our industry would see an investment in excess of $100 billion. So this is just a potential waiting to be harnessed. And last slide actually tells how the ethanol blending program helps connect with the big picture, which has already been spoken about society, economy, environment, whether it is nationally determined contributions, climate change summit things, United Nations sustainability goal, and so on and so forth. That brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your patient listening and the time allocated to me and inviting me to be here. Thank you.
I have one or two questions for Dr. Ravindra ji. You talked about sustainable energy solutions. Now, all through the discussion, when we were looking at advanced biofuels, it becomes very important that the new technologies that we are talking about, we have a control on the capex and the operating expenses. Now, at this point of time, the advanced biofuel program cannot really take off without the government kind of a support. So what are the kind of initiatives from the industry and especially from Praj to bring down the capex and OPEX, so that people can think of 2G, and people are also talking about bolt-on technology, whether it is bolt-on 2G or 1.5G. And I think, we have a lot of resources that are available in the sugar industry, which we need to capitalize on. So with regard to this, I would like to hear your views. Get unmute.
Sorry about that. So I think it's a great question. Every review meeting, every discussion, this keeps coming. How do we dive the capex? Now, there is no silver bullet to be taken here. But I think the answer to this is all options are on table, whether it is technology enhancement, technology breakthroughs, newer variants of microbes, new yeast, better pre-treatment equipment, lowering the processing cycle, lowering the fermentation cycle. And you'll appreciate, sir, that this is industries at the phase of, or this technology is at the phase of takeoff. I have been in the renewable space for over 3 decades. I have seen the early days of wind, early days of solar, where PPAs and tariffs used to be out of the roof compared to what they are today. So I think there is no one straight answer to your question, but let me just say that all angles are being explored, whether it is optimization of hardware, enhancement in technology, standardization of processes, standardizing spare parts, reducing the processing cycles, and obviously the economies of scale will take a long way in taking it closer to the financial viability. So that's by and large the answer. It may not be on the bullseye, but let's see how this goes.
Yeah, I think in addition to that, one have to really look at taking a biorefinery approach. You start with a certain feedstock and then looking at not just the fuel, but also looking at biomaterials, biochemicals, and the byproduct valorization, bringing down the cost of enzymes. All those things matter. I think that is when I think the whole program can really become sustainable and viable.
Yes, I think you hit the nail on the head. That's key. Only thing is the commercialization of those byproducts and streams is also a product life cycle curve. But I think you said it, that to enhance the financial viability, byproducts have a great role to play. Yes.
Okay, sir, you're the only panelist now who is there. If you were to ask for two things for the entire ethanol blending program, start in the entire value chain, if this has to become sustainable or viable, what are the two things that you would expect from the government?
I think
Which are not
government is,
there. Oh, we have
I think,
even Amit Sachdev is also there. He can also add, to that.
I think government is already doing a lot. I think it's inspiring confidence of people. But I think if there is one game changer, it is fast tracking the flex fuel introduction by the OEMs, because I think that's one thing. Because the government recently inaugurated 100% ethanol pumps. So to that extent, the readiness in dispensing is there. But it seems it will take everybody to contribute. I think this is the automobile OEMs who chip in with flex fuel, and I think Honorable Gadkari ji, who has been Minister of Road Transport, has been speaking about it, and we'll see perhaps next year around same time we'll have even firmer answer to this question.
Okay.
I just wanted to add one quick point that, while we are talking about readiness of industry, government policies, and so on, if we incentivize our consumers with the differential pricing or pass on the benefit of higher ethanol blend and the savings therein to consumers, there will be a stronger traction from end users. I think that can be the shot in the arm that can work.